Well, welcome everybody. I'm pretty excited for this episode we're doing today, a technosocial special, where we're going to have a bunch of guys who next month are going to be at the MANN SEIN conference in Berlin, which we thought we'd actually do a little episode to get together to talk about a little bit, as well as to kind of catch up with each other and fill each other in with what we're working on at the moment, what are our priorities, what are interests, and how the world of men's work seems to look in 2023, because we've got John Aigner here from Germany, who's actually the man behind the MANN SEIN conference. We've got Alexander Bard from Sweden. We've got Rowan Andrews from the UK, like myself. And then we've got Dr. Robert Glover, who's over there in the United States of America. And I know all of you guys except Dr. Robert Glover. Rowan, you know Mr. Robert, so you guys have met before. I don't know if the rest of you guys have met or not, but anyway, there's a bit of a cross-pollination going on here. So what I think to start is let's just go around and everybody can introduce themselves a little bit and say a bit about what they're working on at the moment. And I think, John, we'll go to you first because it's your conference that we're here to talk up after all.
Yes, good to see you all. We're putting on the MANN SEIN event in Berlin, which is a conference of sorts because it has a summit attached to it. And we are talking about men's issues at large, but it's also an amazing meeting place for men from all over Europe. We've had a crowd of 500 people in the past, so we're hoping to have that again or top that this year, now that we're out of the COVID mess. So that's taking up a lot of my time right now. Other than that, I'm a men's coach. I'm a full-time men's coach with a coaching practice in Berlin. And this feels almost like a little summit right now. So I'm really excited to talk to you guys.
Great stuff. Alexander, do you want to go next?
Okay, so I've been involved with John's work at MANN SEIN for several years, and it's a major German language conference. It's a great place to meet in Berlin early summer every year. John's ambition is to go more international. And I've been one of the speakers who've been invited the last 2 years to come over. And John's also running a major project called Male Evolution. And it seems like there's a shift from MANN SEIN towards Male Evolution. Gradually, the amount that's done in the English language compared to German language is increasing, simply because the conference is going more international. And I think it's great. We need a meeting place somewhere in Europe where men and men who do men's work can meet. So in connection with that, last year in Denmark, we had the first event of what we call the European Men's Leadership Summit, which is men who do men's work all over Europe meet. And this year, apparently, men from 11 different countries have joined, because what John cleverly has done is that he's put the EMLS, the European Men's Leadership Summit, right before MANN SEIN. So for me, for example, I'm going to go to the EMLS because I'm representing Scandinavia and Sweden and men's work here in Scandinavia. And I'm one of the representatives going to Berlin for EMLS. But of course, I will stay the entire weekend and enjoy the fantastic, amazing atmosphere of MANN SEIN as well while I'm there. So it's all going to happen over a week. And if you're not a leader, then you can certainly go to MANN SEIN itself, the conference, and join in the conversation.
Great stuff. Rowan, what about you, my friend? Where are you at?
Well, just the background is I've been coaching business owners and business leaders for about 15 years. And in the last 6 years, working a lot with men's groups, retreats, boot camps. And the thing that most men have wanted to work on is their relationships with women. And increasingly, my work has evolved to embrace men and women in couples and in workshops to help them connect more deeply in relationship and intimacy together. And more recently, I'm very interested in understanding who we essentially are, who we really are. We tend to have an idea of who we are, that I'm somebody here behind the eyes, that is this separate person from the world out there. And I'm interested in exploring that, the nature of consciousness and how that understanding, or what the implications of that understanding are for our lived experience. That's what I'm doing a lot of work on at the moment.
Nice. And Rowan and I have been working closely together here in the UK for the last few months as well.
Yeah, and I'm very interested, of course, to be with and Robert here and yourself, of course, talking about the evolution of men's work in Europe and how we can collaborate together to actually help men with whatever it is they need to do to transcend whatever limitation it is they might be faced with in order to really solve some of the problems in society at the moment. And my starting point is in our relationship with the relationship between men and women. Let's understand that. Let's improve that and see where we can go from there.
Great. And Mr. Glover, over to you to square the circle.
Oh, it's great to see you guys. I know Rowan, known Rowan for a few years, and the rest of you I'm meeting for the first time, and I'm going to see you in person in just about a month. I'm so excited because I think this is the third year I've been invited to speak at MANN SEIN, and I've done it over Zoom because with COVID couldn't make it. I get to make it this year, and I'll be there in person. I'm so excited to be a part of the European Men's Leadership program as well. I'm the author of No More Mr. Nice Guy. That's probably how most people know me. When I began wanting to do my own personal work and connect with men 30 years ago, about all there was out there was a few small groups kind of following a Joseph Campbell, Robert Bly mythopoetic model. And we went out in the woods and beat drums and held the talking stick and said, "Ho." And that was good. But when I went looking for other ways to just connect with men, I did find it through a 12-step program, but there just wasn't a lot out there. And the internet was in its early years. And I'm still working with men. I'm still working on me. I'm still in a men's program. I believe in men connecting with men. So I'm so excited to see what you guys are doing in Europe. And I'm just so excited to see what's happening worldwide. Just the internet has expanded men's ability to connect with each other in positive ways. I believe there's a worldwide men's movement occurring right now that maybe doesn't necessarily on the surface look like a worldwide men's movement, but men are seeking tribe, they're seeking connection. They may go look for it through, a Brazilian jiu-jitsu, joining a dojo. Maybe they go to a pickup boot camp to connect with men. Maybe they join a divorce recovery group, through their church to connect with men. Maybe they find, a men's yogic consciousness type program. And what's happening is men are seeking, whether they know it or not, tribe and initiation and connection with men. And so that's why I'm so excited to come be a part of this. And what I'm up to right now, for about a year, I've been working on something that's going to launch probably right before I land in Germany. And it is a worldwide online men's community for men to be able to connect all over the world. And I know there's lots of groups out there, and my desire is just to give men a worldwide platform in addition to all the good work that so many good men are doing out there today. So I'll be able to talk more about that when I land in Germany. Basically, it's called Integration Nation, and we're going to just create a worldwide platform for men. For the tagline is good men doing better. We don't have to become better men, different men, but we can do better every day. And that's how we become masterful, integrated men who make a difference in the world, make a difference in our relationships, and live a purposeful life. So I'm excited to come be a part of what you guys are doing and tell you more about Integration Nation when I get there. And I see this as my legacy. My purpose for being here is to connect men worldwide. So thank you for the invitation. And I'm so excited to see you guys over in Europe.
That's fantastic, Robert. I just wanted to add that you get a lot of kicks out of the European Men's Leadership Summit, certainly, because we're doing it here. And I can see how this is both scaling up and scaling down. I think it's wonderful to hear you talk about this Integration Nation platform. I think it's enormously needed. It's just a beautiful idea. It's also about scaling down. For example, after the MLS last year happened in Denmark, I went back to Sweden and started talking to the other guys in the Swedish men's movement. And they really felt to also scale down was important for them. So this fall, we're arranging our first joint effort, like a leadership event for leaders of men's work in Sweden to meet and speak to each other in the Swedish language. So this shows that the idea we have here that we're exploring in Berlin can both be scaled up to the sort of platform you're planning, which I think is beautiful. You can also scale it down all the way down to the local community. And
Amazing,
it's both
yeah.
on a leadership level. This is about men being leaders and taking the lead on men's work and the other guys following. So especially we can get younger men to come in and go through their own personal journey, their own process, their hero's journey to become real men. And I give an example of that specific for Scandinavia is that men and women are together all the time in our culture. We have never really discussed it. We've been forced over the last 40 to 50 years into culture where men and women are together all the time. And we have now a new women's movement here in Sweden, and we have a men's movement, and we're in constant connection with each other. And women are discovering it's fantastic to come to what we call a desexualized space, a space with only women in the room. They don't have to wear the makeup any longer. They have to put on their high heels any longer. They could just be themselves among their sisters. And when I explained this to guys, the guys realized, yeah, I kind of need that too. Exactly. So here in Scandinavia, this whole new world's men's movement is going to happen in parallel with the world women's movement because it's about regaining our sense of sex and gender by being proud of being men in a room with only men in the room. So you get the sort of weird behavior we men go into when a woman enters the room. You just get that out the door. You're just with your brothers. You isolate yourself for several days and go through the entire process of being a man among brothers. And that is so great for the men here in Scandinavia. They love it to bits. And I think a lot of what's going on at the moment is not opposed to women at all. It's really men and women finding themselves in a spiritual space, like Rowan talked about, and then being able to meet as men and women and be much stronger, more self-confident when they do.
Absolutely. I mean, like, what we're doing is an experiment, really. We've never really done this, thrown our women and men together all the time, right? And we are finding out that, let's be honest, it's failing, or at least there's an increased desire for all sexes to join amongst their own kind, if you will, or their own like sexual peer group. So that's what's happening. And when we do that in a conscious way, like we do when you say, I'm going to go there because this is a space just among men, that alone creates a different setting than where we're just sort of happen to be in one room while we're watching a soccer game, for example, right? So that consciousness level, like that consciousness aspect is important there to create these spaces that are meaningful and charge us up, but also give us that feedback that we need and can only get from men if we're a man. And it's awesome to see that, yes, women are very much discovering that themselves. They love when their guys go to MANN SEIN or to men's workshop, and the way these men return, there's so many, we have so many women fans because they're like, yes, this is awesome. Like that my man comes back like, strong and like the best version of himself that I fell in love with. Right. So they're excited about it. And women are noticing, well, it's also good for us to do what you described. Like there's this what I would call sort of like a post-feminist women's movement that very much has discovered that being in a sisterhood is so meaningful. And yes, that's what also helps us create polarity in our relationships, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, just throw out a thought about that. By training, I'm a marriage and family therapist. So I've been working with couples, started working with couples 40 years ago. And I learned over time, whenever a couple walked into my office with any kind of relationship struggle, I would tell both the man and the woman, the best thing you both can do for your relationship is have good same-sex friends. And one of the things I've seen for so many couples is what tends to eat away at relationships. There's a lot of things: unrealistic expectations, projection, past trauma. There's a lot of things that eat away, but too much mundane, boring, doing nothing really important time spent together starts to feel normal. And as you guys were saying, when each can go away and come back, that creates an emotional tension in the relationship. The moving apart creates an emotional tension. The coming back together with anticipation creates an emotional tension and a polarity, as you said. And I've always heard that from when I'm in a relationship. Whenever I go away to do a men's program, I come back and the woman I'm with always says, "Oh, you're so amazing. You're full of energy. You're my king. You're so powerful. I love it when you go away and spend time with conscious men, and come back again, as opposed to maybe just go hanging out in the bar and having a beer and watching a sports event. That usually doesn't bring us back all that full. I mean, those are fun things to do as well. But when you go deep with other conscious men, get that masculine initiation, we bring a gift back to women and world. And so again, that's why I get so excited about men getting together with men. And again, I just applaud you guys for what you're doing in Europe. I'm so glad to come be a part of it.
I'm just curious here. So, Rowan, if I figured that, you started No More Mr. Nice Guy, like a program in the UK. So what is the relationship here between Robert and Rowan, since you're both coming to Berlin? And I'm really looking forward to seeing you both there in person. But I would love to hear more about Rowan's relationship with Robert and how this came about.
Well, I read Robert's book about 9 years ago at the end of my marriage, when my marriage had come to an end. Somebody recommended it to me, and it was like, oh my God, this is my autobiography. And I think that this is the genius of Robert's work, is that we can all see ourselves in that book. He takes apart the kind of psyche of the masculine psyche, the male psyche, and shows us why the patterns of behavior are the way that they are, that tend to cause dysfunction in our relationships. I was just speaking to a prospective client this morning who said, I read the book and it was about me. Most men that read it is like, oh, this is my autobiography. And I think that's just been such a massive contribution to men's work, to have Robert reveal us in that way. So I went to work with Robert, did a couple of his workshops. I think I assisted on one workshop as well. And we built a relationship, and I set up a group because when I came back to the UK, I couldn't find one. I wanted to continue and help other men that were working on their own nice guy tendencies and breaking away from them. And so I set up a No More Mr. Nice Guy group, and I've been working with men in that sort of vacuum, if you like. And the view from outside, particularly amongst women, is somehow distrustful of this kind of men's group that's called No More Mr. Nice Guy. And there's a kind of assumption about an inherent misogyny about that. And so it's become quite difficult it's not difficult, but having to explain that that's not where Robert's coming from. That's not where I'm coming. It's not where this work is coming from at all. It's actually about bringing us together. It's about loving women, loving ourselves and loving women. And so but that has been a problem, I think, in the UK in particular. I think nice guy is better understood in the States, but in the UK, culturally, we think of it as misogyny. There's a kind of, certainly women, their initial response, oh, that's men kind of going their own way and doing their own thing, and we can't really trust that. And that's partly why I'm wanting to bring men and women together in more groups and get away from any barriers that might be preventing that.
It's funny you say that, because to me, the book title is genius, but I love negations, right? Because it forces people to think. And I think sometimes also both men and women are lazy in the sense that they want to be served everything explained, like it's from here to there, here it is, right? The funny thing with the book title, I'd like to hear Robert explain why he chose the book title, because I think it's genius, but I love negations in the sense that it says, no more Mr. Nice Guy. It doesn't say what you are. It just says that you know more this guy, or you have decided no longer to be this guy. So the nice guy here, and there's a twist to that, of course, you're supposed to be a nice guy, and you discover that, well, nice guy doesn't really pay off. So Robert, when you came up with the title, brilliant title, by the way, and it caught on among men, it has really caught on. Did you foresee also that this could be problematic along the way, that you find you didn't serve people what they were supposed to look for? Or are you still proud of having given the negation to work with?
I still love the title. And it just seemed like, I get that it's paradoxical. People might pick up a book and say, why would somebody write a book teaching men to be not nice? There's already enough not nice men out there. And but probably everybody at some point has said, no more Mr. Nice Guy. I'm done taking it. I'm standing up for myself. Probably everybody, man, women, have said, no more Mr. Nice Guy. And so what happened was, I took pride in myself being a nice guy. I thought, why wouldn't everybody appreciate who I am. And why wouldn't everybody want to be a nice guy, treating people well, being generous, avoiding conflict? But then when I came to realize that that was coming from a paradigm that said there's something about me that's not good enough, it's not okay, I have to be better. And so when I started seeing this in other men I was working with in couples therapy, they were coming into therapy with their wives or girlfriends, and they were saying the same thing I was saying. I'm a nice guy. I'm the nicest guy you're ever going to meet. How come she doesn't appreciate me? How come she's always mad at me? I treat her better than her ex. I'm raising her kids. I do everything for her. It's never good enough. When's it going to be my turn? And come to find out, they were also just like me in that they were not particularly honest. They never told the whole truth. They avoided conflict. They were passive aggressive. They would let things build up till they blew up. And so that's when I started a No More Mr. Nice Guy men's group 30 years ago, just to start working on these things I was discovering about myself. And then that's where the book came from, is working with just hundreds of men in the men's groups. So finally, when I got an agent to publish what I was writing to these guys in these groups I was leading, my agent was a pretty well-known New York agent. He's successful, and he said, "Robert, I'm going to work for you. I'm not a nice guy. I'll go to bat, but I think we should change the title." And I said, "Non-negotiable." I said, "That's not going to happen." And what was interesting is that he shopped the book to a lot of big publishers, and a lot of editors told me, "Robert, we like your book. It's well written. But our marketing department doesn't think that men will buy a self-help book, especially one that tells them they're kind of losers." And I go, no, you don't understand the guys I work with. They want to be good men. They just need some direction of what that actually really looks like to be good men. And then finally, when I got a bunch of national media exposure in the United States, and publisher Barnes & Noble picked up the book and decided to publish it. I think honestly, they were hoping there was some pushback, that maybe, women's groups or, because that sells books, right? That's all they cared about. And you know what? That's never happened in like 20 plus years since the book came out. Maybe, this is probably exaggerating, I've gotten maybe a dozen emails, maybe 12 emails from women who pushed back on the title. And in almost every case, it was obvious, number one, they'd not read the book. And what usually happened is their boyfriend or husband had read the book and then left. And usually the email they wrote me was like this really long diatribe on and on, how, my husband, their husband this, or my book did that, and I'm ruining the world, and I'm this. And I'm thinking about whoever their man was, I'm going, run faster, get away, go, keep going. And as much as I'm supportive of building healthy relationships, that's really the only blowback I've gotten. 10 or 12 emails from women who are upset because their husband read my book and maybe left a toxic relationship. I don't know. And I regularly get emails from women saying, "Thank you for the book. I've given it to my husband, my ex. I just hired a new corporate attorney with the new project I'm working on, the Integration Nation." She goes, that book sounds familiar. Writes me back the next day and says, "Oh, my husband read that book in the men's program he's in." And so I keep just getting responses from women, mothers that say, "Is there something for young boys out there? My 17-year-old son, his girlfriend's already bossing him around and taking advantage of him. What can I do to help?" And I usually say, "Mom, you've probably done too much. Back off a little bit. The boy needs to connect with men." But women, when they read it, they in general like what I'm saying. I'm teaching men to have integrity, to be honest, to be authentic, to have boundaries, to communicate, to show up fully in whatever they're doing, whether it's in their work or their relationship or connecting in the world. So I see the book as really connecting men and women. Female therapists recommend it to their male clients all the time. So I love the energy that all of you have, that this is not about men going their own way. This is not a battle between the sexes. This is not one gender's better than the other, or it really is, how do we be our best selves and show up to women and world as our best selves and give our gift to women and world. And again, I'm convinced we as men need connection with good men to be our best selves, to live our best lives. And I don't think there can be too many opportunities for men to go connect with good men.
No, it's like when young men come in, they come in through the door these days and they have women problems or they have girl problems. They go on and on about it. And I just said, listen, if you stopped focusing on women and started focusing on other men or your brothers out there, and usually their social networks of men are terrible. I said,
Yes.
That's the problem. Listen, if you fix your relationships with other men, you become the man, the best man that a woman could ever have. That's what women are telling me all the time. Why doesn't he go off and fix his relationships with other men? Why is he dysfunctional? Or the way I rephrase it, if you just want to switch again and play around with things, we all know about Marlboro Man, at least my generation, Marlboro Man, you know, that lonely cowboy with the cigarette riding his horse in the Wild West. I always remind guys that when Marlboro Man rode into the Wild West town, the brothel madam would immediately close the brothel. No woman ever sleeps with a loner. The loner is not attractive to women at all. The loner is dangerous. The loner is just dysfunctionality. The loner is not what women want. Women want the man who walks through the door at the nightclub, goes up to see his brothers in the bar and gets the drinks for all his brothers and spend an hour or so with his brothers in the bar having fun. And then he looks after the women in the room and the women go, wow. Because he's a leader. He's a leader among men. Like that is women are obsessed with social hierarchy, and this is the guy they're going for. And this is why I tell the guys, listen, get off the girls, get off the women, get right out of that zone right now and go into men's work with other men in a men's group and do the long journey. And then eventually you become a man you are proud of when you look in the mirror. You'll be proud of him yourself. That's your best as a man. And that's where you can go and see women. And you'll discover you'll be much better off with the women than you ever thought you could be.
Yeah.
But maybe
you guys, so you guys have probably have all seen that exact thing. As you led programs with men, men come, connect deeply with other men, get our focus on that dynamic. We go then back out. I mean, we got to leave sooner or later. We got to leave the conference, the workshop, the group, and we go back out in the world and to our relationships. And what guys start noticing is, wait a minute, you know, they're coming on to me. And what guys notice if they pay attention to it is once they've connected with men and got that dynamic energy going on from being with men, all things feminine just seem to come their way. And I'll use feminine in an energetic kind of a David Date-ish kind of way. And one thing I've been saying for some time, when a man is comfortable in his own skin, knows where he's going, and looks like he's having a good time going there, that's amazingly attractive to all things feminine. Women, dogs, cats, babies, money, adventure, opportunity. You don't have to chase it. It comes to you. We just have to open to it. But we only get that way, as you say, we don't get that way from being the loner, hanging out by ourselves, you know, online surfing the internet, playing video games, smoking pot, you know, hanging out with women that there's no possibility we'll ever have sex with them. That does not make us amazingly attractive to all things feminine. Connecting with men is that key. It is the way that we connect with that masculine part of ourselves that polarizes all things feminine, and feminine is inherently attracted of wanting to connect with that.
Yeah. I would even add that it's the opposite way as well. There's so many guys who come to men's work, they work with in Scandinavia, have a sex addiction problem. Same thing there. It's all about going back to the means of being with your brothers, being with men, and finding your real manhood, because they're only sex addicts because of a compensation problem or a trauma they're dealing with. So it goes both ways, I think, with men's work. I'd love to hear Rowan on that one, because you obviously have discovered that the book title served you to launch No More Mr. Nice Guy in the UK, but you decided to go for another name that more explains where you were aiming, actually, rather than staying with the negation. And what was your experience working with other men who came through the door also that had problems like sex addiction, Rowan? What has been your experience with that?
Well, I would say that 98% of the men that have come through my doors have wanted to deal with their relationship. I can't get into a relationship. Help me find a partner. How do I get somebody to be in my life and share my life with me? Or, you know, how do I repair the relationship I've already got that has gone to shit? And at the root of that is a deep emotional problem. And I see this in all the generations. I was talking to I have a 21-year-old daughter. She's a student. And, you know, they tell me how young men show up. And it's also, I see it with older men as well, that they get triggered so easily by whatever opinion might be expressed that might suggest that they are not enough, by women telling them, you know, getting pissed off with them because they haven't done the washing up properly, or whatever, even these most mundane things. Men lapse into their emotion about it, and that's very unsexy for their partners. And women really just want a man that can hold himself and hear her and handle himself in whatever situation that he's in, however challenging that might appear to be. And that's a very difficult thing for most men to be able to do without feeling very, very vulnerable, defensive, aggressive, reactionary. I think men have to really, men and women, but we need to kind of wounds that are creating that sort of emotional response, because we have a real problem here in our relationship, men and women. There's a gender problem here. Just to give you a bit of a flavor of that, last year the authorities took a look at a load of complaints that were made against the Metropolitan Police, our biggest police service in the UK. And over a 6-month period, there were something like 1,500 complaints against police officers for sexual misconduct of some sort, ranging from inappropriate sexual verbal abuse to rape amongst the police force in just one 6-month period. So we've got a real big problem here. And I'm just using the police as an example of an inherent societal problem. You know, we've got divorce rates increasing, we've got relationships failing. We really are struggling in our relationships between men and women. And I think if we can start to solve that, and men can understand who they are underneath the conditioning that Robert talks about in his book, if we can really understand, let go of all of that stuff, do whatever we need to do with it, process it, understand that that is not who we essentially are. Who we are is, you know, the embodiment of consciousness in a masculine form, and that the nature of that masculine is immensely strong and able to deal with the sorts of challenges that we need to be dealing with in the world right now. So that's what I'm interested in. I think that's an exploration of going beyond just examining past trauma. I think it's about letting go of or understanding where we are identified with our ego and this belief in somebody in here that is limited in some way and that has to acquire happiness from objects and people and relationships and sex and so on in order to feel better about themselves, in order to be realized or whatever, ultimately to be happy. And that is a kind of crisis of identity, if you like. It's a belief in the ego that we need to really explore a great detail to be able to go beyond it and really find that masculine essence, which is perfectly capable of solving the kinds of problems we're talking about, and can lead the way for women to do the same, to really find their feminine essence. And that's where your polarity is.
I use a good starting point here. I tell these men who have these problems that there's an enormous difference between a boy who wants to be applauded by his mother and a man who wants to make love to a woman. And the journey from the boy who wants to be applauded by his mother, which is something we should have given up on when we were like 12, right? And even then, it would be a bit sissy, like it's a boyish thing, right? So the man who makes love to a woman is a totally different figure. And I say the only advice I can give the guys when they want to make that journey is that there's only one thing that completely goes with that journey, and that is stronger networks with other men. It's support of other brothers. And the way I rephrase that is that I know your marriage is probably failing and it's going downhill quickly when you turn your wife into your therapist. That's not what your woman wants to be. And you should not allow her to turn you into her therapist, because if you become the therapist of your partner, you've killed it. You go to the elders, you go to somebody else for your therapy. You go to your own gender. You go to another man for your therapy. You don't go to your wife and turn into therapist. It kills the love life, it kills everything. And it's evident to your woman when you turn her into your therapist, evident to her that your weakness among other men has now become her problem. Because you don't have the male social network that will be supportive of you when you need to deal with something. And that's exactly why turning your wife into therapist is basically absurdly turning her into a mother again who's supposed to applaud you, which makes it even worse. Get out of that quickly. Go back to the men's group. Sit down with the other men. Find an elder or a mentor to guide you and get out of the problem on your own. And then come back strong and deliver to your woman instead.
Yes, and I think there's a further problem there that, we need to get out of the blame game. Clients come to me and couples come to me, and it's like the problem in our relationship is the other one. It's, my partner won't have sex with me. If only she'd have sex with me, then everything would be okay in our relationship, and other reasons. And I think we have to recognize what we are putting out there, what we are creating, actually what we are responsible for creating. That there isn't a world out there that is doing to us, but actually we are creating our own reality. And if we can really grasp that and take responsibility for what we are creating, then I think it's the first step to transcending the limitations of our relationships with women.
Why do you guys think that at this point in time in the 21st century, we're having so many issues with nice guys, with guys turning their partners into therapists, with the sorts of thing we've been discussing? Why now?
Well, because it's a symptom. I mean, I love what's happening here, by the way, because what happens in our relationship has everything to do with the world at large and why men's work is so important. Like why having being able to pull off a relationship with all that polarity and not being a nice guy and all that will also lead to the fact that we become a more peaceful world. So it has to do everything with each other. And like when we started out earlier, this has failed, this experiment of throwing us together constantly, and making mother sort of the deciding factor if we're good and nice and correct and enough and all these things, combined with other stuff that's thrown at us that can lead to all kinds of psychological trauma that, yes, we do need to deal with and clean house before we are able to stand our own ground and have that polarity from the masculine pole. And then, yes, all these beautiful things that Rowan and Robert have mentioned can happen. But that's just it. Like when we become good among other men, or if we go to other men to make us masculine and also give us that feedback, then we will learn how to be a man, well-rounded, attractive, sexy. And yes, it's obviously not the Marlboro man, he's the loner. The captain of the football team is the metaphor that I use. That says it all. The captain of the football team. He's attractive among men for that reason, and he's super sexy to all the cheerleaders and the hottest chicks in high school, right? So he's that sums it up. If you become that guy, and not in that sort of rom-com cliche kind of way, but it's an interesting sort of pop culture metaphor that we have there, the captain of the football team. That's what you do. And yes, the guys are important. The guys is who you go to that tell you, yeah, that's good. That's a home run, right? And then the women automatically find that very attractive. Like Alexander was saying earlier, the guy that comes in and hangs out with the men first, then the woman knows, oh, he's good among men. Not only is he from a polarity point of view attractive, but he knows his shit. He's the leader, right? Of course he's hot. Of course I want him, right? So, and that woman wanting him also means that he's got his shit together. And when you got your shit together, you can teach other men how to have their shit together. And that's where we get to the part of creating a better world for everybody when men get their shit together, or like Robert said earlier, men that do better, right? So I think that's the big arc here. And since MANN SEIN is about relationships as a theme this year, but also about men's work at large, I love how we're just connecting these two, that they have everything to do with each other.
Yes, and I think such a big part of this is about sexuality and understanding our sexuality.
Mm-hmm.
You know, men, a lot of men that I work with, and women for that matter, they sex with their partner as a means to validation. So if my partner has sex with me, then I am okay. Particularly for men, if she opens her legs for me, then I'm okay. I am complete. I must be okay. I must be a good man. I must be good if she's given me that most intimate experience with her, then I'm okay. So men get very needy on that, and that's where I see so much of the sexual relations breaking down, because men are so focused on that need and that objectifying their partner as the one that can give it to them, and sex becomes all about it is very one track focused on transactional arrangement. You give me, I'll give you your orgasm if you give me mine. And that's pretty unattractive. So I think that once we start to go beyond that, and sex becomes, we start to learn how to engage sexually and use sexual energy and how to dance with sexual energy between one and the other, then the sexual energy doesn't have to end in orgasm, but the energy can stay in the relationship even when we're separate from each other. And in fact, it's the sexual energy that drives the relationship and indeed drives our, purpose and the activities that we take part in life. It inspires, growth and moving towards something and offering something bigger than just solving a little problem for ourselves. So there is so much to be gained from really examining and exploring who we really are and working with men and healing our relationship with women, that is totally transcendent of the kinds of struggles that most men are dealing with on a day-to-day level. So I think sexuality is a huge part of what we need to better understand.
I would even add that what's most lacking today is the art of seduction. Always remember, seduction is the total opposite of manipulation. As soon as I see manipulation in a relationship, I know it's going downhill. But as soon as I see any trace of seduction in there, I know they're in a good place. They're in a really good place. And if you think about the art of seduction, is something you need to learn as a man, right? Who would you like as a teacher? Well, not a woman. Because if a woman would have to teach you how to seduce other women, it would get pretty embarrassing, wouldn't it? No, you need an older man to teach you the art of how to seduce. An experienced man who's been around. He's been the lover of women, and he's cool with women. And that's exactly why men's work is important. You pointed out exactly there, Rowan, because if you think of the art of seduction, what you really would love to do as a man, like at least in relation to women, then you sum it all up right there. You need other men, you need older men, you need experienced men who come to you, who are your mentors, who guide you. And nothing is more beautiful than an older man learning a younger man the art of seduction. It's the most masculine thing of all.
Robert,
let's take Mike off.
Oh, sorry.
I'm on Zoom hours every day. I always forget to unmute myself. I love the theme, and to answer the question, why are we where we're at today? And there's a great line in both the book by Chuck Palahniuk and the movie Fight Club, where the Brad Pitt character is in the bathtub, and Edward Norton character, they're actually just each other's alter ego, are talking, and the Edward Norton character says, I got to find a woman. And the Brad Pitt character says, we're a generation of men raised by women, and I don't think another woman is the answer to what we're looking for. And that was so powerful, because that's typically, like as little boys, it's a developmental stage to want our mommy's approval. And that's normal. We want to possess our mother. We want to marry mommy when we grow up. Freud was really right about that little boys desire their mother. And if they have a healthy connection with their father, and if mother has good, healthy boundaries with the son, there's a natural progression where the boy moves through that phase, connects with father, is comfortable with father energy, masculine energy, men in general, and then they don't have to go seek the female approval anymore. As I said, it comes to them. And the masculine, I've been saying for a long time, is internally validated through masterful action. The feminine part of ourselves, we all have masculine, feminine side, but the feminine part of ourselves is externally validated through approval and desire. So when we're wanting that approval and, oh, choose me, pick me, have sex with me, think I'm good. That's the feminine part of ourselves that will not attract feminine. The masculine part that is connected with the masculine, okay with our dad energy, male energy, can bond with other men, that is internally validating through masterful action. But here's the crisis we have, is that most young boys don't have that healthy connection with an available wise father. Maybe no connection with the father at all. Maybe their connections with, either bad father, bad stepfather, whatever. And so where boys, as they're growing up nowadays, they're highly influenced by their mothers, by a pretty feminine oriented educational system around the world that actually, it teaches children how the feminine wants to learn, not how the masculine learns, through doing and learning to master things. And so by the time a boy hits adolescence, he's been told what not to be by a lot of this feminine energy, doesn't know what to be because never had any masculine initiation. And nowadays, what they go to the internet, they go to social media, and being on social media for any man is basically chasing likes and approval. It's very feminine. Social media is very feminine. So boys are chasing that. When they're not finding the answers, they're not finding what to be. They've been told what not to be. Then they turn to the extremes, whether it's Andrew Tate Hustlers University, whether it's extreme red pill, even white nationalism, and bonding around we're better than everybody else. We got to get rid of every image, all that stuff. When men do not have that good, healthy mentor, so many of you have mentioned, and are not connected to our own sexuality, do not have a healthy polarity of both valuing ourselves as masculine creatures and valuing the feminine in ourselves and in women. When we don't have that well connected, we either go, we just shut down and become impotent, basically, or we go seeking, how can I get some control and power at these extremes, right? And that's where, again, I love everything that all you guys are saying. We just need good, healthy, wise, experienced men to help us. It's funny. I was talking with a client just last week. He's struggling. He got caught between his ex-wife over some parenting issues and his present wife, who now feels unsafe because he won't stand up to the ex-wife. He's trying to please the present wife and get her to be happy with him and want to have sex with him again. And he says, "What should I do?" And I said, how do I deal with this with my wife? I said, number one, you have to have good boundaries with your ex-wife, or she'll never feel safe. And you need to go work this out with men. You need to work it out with me. You mean I can't go to my wife and tell her what's bothering me? Go tell it to a man first. Well, you mean we can't go have deep, intimate conversations? I said, yes, you can, but go have them with a man first. Work through your emotional little boy, I need approval, I need everybody happy with me issues with men, and then come back to your wife and have those deep, intimate, loving conversations. And he kept resisting it. But I want to be able to go tell my wife all the things that are bothering me and how unhappy I am, how much I need her to love me, and how much it hurts me when she's not available sexually. And I said, I gotta go talk to men first. And it's just like that just was so foreign and so resistant. And I love that every one of you basically said the same thing. Go connect with men to work through these pieces, and then they tend to begin to work themselves out in just elegantly beautiful, simple ways with women and world. So again, I'm so thrilled to be part of this tribe with you guys and what's going on, around the world.
Thank you, Robert. I'm just going to say we've got a few minutes left before the hour, and I know you need to go. So it's time to start wrapping this up, unfortunately. Maybe let's just, guys, do a final round, maybe just share a few additional thoughts or reflections, anything that you feel you need to say that you haven't said yet, and maybe mention where people can find you if they want to follow up about you as well. Especially John, right? Give us a little bit more about the conference that we're all going to be at next month.
I was just gonna say, you can Google my name if you're interested. I'm not in sales pitch mode at all, and I never am with men's work. I love this conversation. I love where this is going. I'm dying to go to Berlin next month, and I hope to see you guys there.
Like I said, I'm going to be there. I'm excited. If anybody wants to look me up again, they can Google me. Dr. Robert Glover. My website is drglover.com. And if you want to go check out Integration Nation, it's integrationnation.net. So check it out, and we'll talk more about it when I see you guys in Europe. And with that, I'm in.
Well, I just, it's lovely to talk with you guys about our shared interest in these matters. RowanAndrews.com is where people can find out more about what I do with men and women.
I'm super excited as well. I mean, this seems a little bit like sort of like a preview of what we're going to be doing at the European Men's Leadership Summit, which, yes, is this year attached to MANN SEIN 2023, which will be happening in Berlin from the 17th to the 18th of June. And I hope all of you who are watching and listening, please check it out, mannsein.org, MANNSEIN.org. That's our website. Check it out and come see us. Meet me and 500 other men and these beautiful men that we just had this conversation with. Oh,
great stuff. Well, guys, thank you very much for all being here. I'm super, super excited for when we get together next month. I think it's going to be a real blast. And also to people listening who've got this far, come along, hang out with us. We're not that scary.
That's right.